Hello everyone and welcome back to Game 4 Guardcon 2018. So after the first day we're sitting on 28 points thanks to two 10-all draws and a small 8-12 loss to Infernal Dwarves. So not a great start, not managing to pick up a win on the first day, but sitting at 28 points is actually not too far behind the pack, so potential with a couple of big wins on day 2 to possibly still creep up the leaderboard and possibly even place. So game 1 I was meant to be playing Orcs and Goblins, and I focused on the army list and came up with a game plan to appear the next morning to find that I was instead playing a new opponent, as my Orcs and Goblins opponent was running late that day. So we're playing against the umpire for the tournament, who is the fill-in for this game. So Richard is bringing quite an interesting list. Big chariot block with the character in there, very strong magic phase, couple of sphinx, and enough shooting to potentially worry me as well. So enough threats there that I've got to be careful. Hopefully those catapults aren't going to manage to get a direct hit on either of my vampires during this game. So moving on to my list, if you haven't had a read, pause it and do so, but big focus is on the two Vampire Knight units and the two characters. So against Richard we are playing King of the Hill, and we have got the attacker-defender scenario. I got to choose sides, and then we traded a couple of drops before I went all down again to take first turn. So you can see I am the defender, even though gives me the big middle to help push forward aggressively. So from the left we've got the dogs, ghouls, Vampire Knight unit, bats in behind, zombies in behind that, and zombies again to the side on top of the hill there. And then on the right hand side, kind of a little bit symmetrical, we've got dogs on the far side and then bats coming in, and then my other vampire unit. Spent a good amount of time overnight thinking about how I was playing. And you'll probably see slightly different tactics from me from this game forward, trying to allow myself to be more aggressive with my Vampire Knights. Too often they were getting chaffed up, often by my own units, and we'll try and get them into combat a lot quicker. On his side you can see there's a skeleton block there on the left hand side, the big chariot unit just sitting on the hill there. Another big skeleton unit next to that with his arc and catapult in behind, and then next to that on the right hand side his skeleton archers, more skeletons, and the battle sphinx right across on the far right. A little bit surprised he didn't deploy those further forward. Yeah, they end up being perhaps a little bit too far out of the way. So on my turn I vanguard my dogs up. Got a little bit caught out as I couldn't come within the 12 inches, so we ended up doing a bit of a wheel to face in towards the middle a bit. Plan was to be able to vanguard straight forward and then run forward and chaff them like normal, but the closeness of our deployment zones meant I wasn't quite able to do as much of that as I wanted to. So turn 1, the dogs run up to chaff up the left hand side with the ghouls, the knights and the bats all moving forward reasonably aggressively, and we're pushing the ghouls and the zombies a little bit towards the left there, hoping that we will be able to secure that hill that Richard has chosen as his deployment terrain feature for me to capture. So there's the dogs up there chaffing the chariots and the skeletons. Again, we're that 12.1 inches back, so he can't possibly overrun into me. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation. If he doesn't kill the chaff, then I can keep chaffing him. If he does kill the chaff, I can charge him. So on my turn, we get off a couple of summons. Just wanting to boost those zombie unit numbers a bit, as I've got the feeling I might get tied up in combat and need them to have a few extra bodies if I want to win that scenario. So on his turn he charges the dogs with the skeletons, and otherwise doesn't really move a lot. The sphinx just come across a little bit, but that is about all that he moves on his turn. In shooting he chips off a wound on the Vampire Knights there, and I think he killed off a couple of ghouls as well. looks like, what have we got there? 4 and a bit rank, so you killed off 4, maybe 5 ghouls. So then in combat he destroys the dogs as you would expect. So on my turn, the ghouls make a charge into that skeleton unit. Fairly confident that fight's going to go well. The bats go forward and chaff the chariots. Both Vampire Knight units fail to charge. So we went for a charge with the ones on the right into the closer skeleton unit, I believe, and the ones on the left went for the chariots. They weren't particularly long charges. I think I needed 8s, and we failed them both. So that was not a good sign. I think if I'd made those charges, that was pretty much game. But this way we've chaffed them up for another turn and we haven't really lost too much, but it was frustrating to miss out on that opportunity. On the right hand side, the dogs are a bit slow and getting left behind, but the bats are able to go forward and chaff the Sphinx. I think it's a 12, possibly an 11 for the overrun into the unit of Vampire Knights, so a little bit nervous there about that. The skeletons can charge me, but it'll be a front charge, and I'm pretty confident that even with them charging me, we win that fight. So on the left hand side, the ghouls do a reasonably good number on the skeletons, but don't quite manage to kill them. It's going to give them the opportunity to recover some wounds next turn. On his turn, the skeletons do charge into my Vampire Knight unit. I'm pretty confident that I beat them. It's just whether or not we can pop them in a turn and have a good charge in return. The skeleton chariots do charge my bats, so I think that's going to give me a counter charge, which I'm rather happy about. And the Sphinx do both go into my bats on the right hand side, so finally deciding he needs to clear my chaff. In Magic, doesn't show it here yet, but I believe yeah, there we go, he summons a crap ton of skeletons back. I think I failed to dispel any of his spells, and he managed to get several attributes off there and bring just about the whole lot of his skeletons back, which is rather unfortunate. In shooting, I think he just killed off some zombies, which I'm quite happy about that. And then we go on to combat. So combat, the ghouls pretty much bring the skeletons back down to where they were. The Vamp Knights don't kill nearly as many as I would have liked, so he's still sitting there with what looks like 12 skeletons. And of course he kills my bats with his chariot charge, and he kills the other bats with the Sphinx. Interestingly, he only overran with 1. So when we move on to my turn, the dogs are chaffing his Sphinx there, and the Vampire Knight unit that's not in combat gets the charge off into his chariot block. I should make an absolute mess of them on the charge, even though his champion, I think, will probably accept the challenge from my vampire. My vampire should kill that champion. The Vamp Knights add agility 6 on the charge, 3 attacks each plus champion at strength 7. I should kill a fair number of those chariots, hopefully enough that I will pop them. So in combat, the ghouls finish off the skeletons and reform into the middle to claim the hill or make a charge. The Vampire Knights finish off the skeletons and just turn to face the Sphinx. Don't especially want them to be charged, but I think it's a very long charge for him to make, and then if he fails, I charge him, and strength 7 on the charge should be enough to do enough wounds with crumble to pop him in a turn. And you can see my general's unit absolutely rinses the chariots, destroys them on the charge, turns, and we're now facing into his soft underbelly with his archers and his characters and his catapults there. So on his turn, he charges my dogs with the Sphinx that was chaffed. The other one failed its charge on my Vamp Knight unit. The skeletons turn around to face my general's unit, try and stop me charging over into the arc and the catapult there. In shooting, he manages to kill off, I think, 1 Vampire Knight with shooting there. Kills off a few zombies, I believe, with a catapult. And then in combat, the Sphinx destroys the dogs, as you'd expect. So then on my turn, ghouls turn around to go after the chariot that was in the corner that I'd forgotten. The catapult in the corner that I'd forgotten all about. Make sure we kill that off. My general's unit goes into the skeletons, and the zombies charged into the flank as well. Should give me enough combat res that now they will pop. Zombies charged into the battle sphinx that was free, while the knight unit went into the other one. So in combat, the zombies don't do any wounds as you'd expect, but they do hold the sphinx up. The other unit destroys the sphinx and reforms to go after his arc. The vampire general, he and his unit destroy that skeleton unit along with the zombies. The zombies turn ready to go back and chaff up the battle sphinx again, while my character units destroy the catapult and the arc. And then on his last turn, he destroys the zombies. And then all that really happens from here is my knights turn around and come back and kill the sphinx. My ghouls kill the catapult in the corner, and my general charges, hitting the arc and then overrunning and killing the catapult. So end up destroying everything. Get a very, very big win, 20-0 to me, as we got the secondary objective as well with the hill. Yeah, very satisfying game. Got a little bit concerned when I failed some of those charges early, but I think this was a fairly tough matchup for Richard. He didn't have a lot of great answers for my Vamp Knights. Probably needed to chaff them a bit and try and manage to get a flank or something, but I think he spent too much of his time shooting at them with their with his shooting phase and his magic missiles, and with a 1-up save, we really weren't taking many wounds. Always a pleasure to play Richard. He's a fantastic guy to play against, always a good sport. Was most enjoyable game for me of this tournament. The result probably helped that, but I think I played a lot better, didn't make too many mistakes, and Richard, as I say, is always a good sport. So enjoyed this game. Like if you haven't, subscribe if you haven't, and we'll look forward to bringing you Game 5 a little bit later on, where we will be hopefully pushing for a place near the top of the table with playing against my stepson and his highborn elves. So fairly easy game, Game 5, hopefully, where we can pick up another good score. So thanks for watching. Cheers.